If you've been itching for a cool new roguelike, then check this out. Hey people, voice talking to you, and this is Skull Horde, a new Necromancer auto-battle dungeon crawler roguelike. If you'd like to check this game out for yourself or see my full playthrough stream, there are links to both down in the description. This game is geared to have multiple necromancers to choose from, and likely they will all have their own summons and special abilities. For this playtest, we are a powerful wizard betrayed by our own body. Quite literally cut off from our own flesh and left to rot, we return as a floating, flaming skull hell-bent on revenge against our traitorous corpse. But seeing as we're little more than a floating head now, we may need some assistance if we're going to track down our body. The putrid carcass we used to inhabit has mutated to create an army of horrifying meat monsters in a vain attempt to take over the world. We may be evil, but we have standards, and against this army of flesh we must pit the strength and certainty of bone. We're free to explore each map as we please, and our skull will periodically target the nearest enemy with a bolt of flame, but our primary force for both offense and defense will be the skeletal army at our command. We start with a few basic troops, but as we progress through each dungeon, we earn coins and gross flesh bulbs we can spend to summon new troops. There's already a really solid variety of skeletons to choose from. There are spearmen that root enemies in place, sturdy shield bearers to absorb attacks, and even necrotic clerics to heal damaged troops. There is a limit to the different kinds of skeletons we can have in our army, but stacking soldiers of the same type is more beneficial anyways. Obtaining 3 soldiers of the same variety will combine them into a veteran troop, offering greater stats than its component forces. For most soldiers, 3 of these veterans can also be combined into a mighty champion troop. These evolutions offer not only greatly improved stats, but also additional effects that can be further modified with artifacts. Artifacts are collectible items that have a small chance to be dropped by defeated enemies, but more commonly, they're found inside treasure chests or shop stalls. We don't always have a selection of items to choose from, but we can always spend increasing amounts of resources to re-roll our loot if we don't like what we see. These artifacts can offer simple boosts to damage or health, but many of them can dramatically shift the way your army functions. Some increase armor at the cost of dodge chance, some increase critical chances or overall accuracy, and some can even make your skeletons explode when they fall in battle. Make no mistake, the core of any build is the synergy between our army composition and the artifacts we pick up along the way. Since we're a necromancer, the summoner loadout is kind of baked in. I did say this was an auto-battler, and our army of skeletons will be doing all the heavy lifting. It's easy to feel like you're invincible, but not only can our skeletons be destroyed, but our flying skull can take hits as well. When one of our skeletons dies, a timer starts until they can revive and return to the battlefield. Only one skeleton can be summoned at a time though, and more powerful soldiers will take longer to revive. If you aren't careful, your revive queue will quickly stack up and leave you vulnerable. If all of your skeletons fall, we lose one of our lives and instantly revive our whole army. Lose all your lives, however, and your run is over. Now, I've never been one for auto-battlers, but this title included some awesome features that keep the player involved and at the center of the battle. Our skull is immortal, but still vulnerable. If we take damage, it's split equally among our army, making us the most valuable target at any time. But we also move much faster than our army, can fly through enemy units, and our flame attacks are perfect for harrying backline fighters. I do really wish you could manually target which enemy you're shooting flame bolts at, because right now it's just whoever's closest to you, which means you kind of have to put yourself in danger. But I guess you can't have everything. We do also have 2 primary abilities at our disposal, the first of which is likely specific to which character you're playing as. The Necromancer we got to test in this demo could periodically inspire our troops to a frenzy, greatly increasing their attack speed. Our second ability is to rally our forces, calling them from wherever they are to our position. This is useful for forming defensive lines and keeping your troops out of AoE attacks. Between dodging enemy fire, targeting dangerous opponents, and managing the health and formation of our troops, it never really feels like we aren't involved in the battle. Plus, the game is also a dungeon crawler, which brings an entirely new level of challenge into the mix. Our ultimate goal is to reach the final floor of each dungeon and defeat the boss there, but that is by no means an easy task. As soon as we enter the dungeon, the threat meter in the top right begins counting down. The longer we spend on each level, the more dangerous and more numerous our enemies become. If you don't move quickly, you will be completely overwhelmed by enemy forces before you ever see the boss. However, exploring the dungeon is the best way to get stronger, promising artifacts, resources, and access to shops and shrines that can add new modifiers to your run. For a price, of course. Graphically speaking, I'd say this game is pretty sweet. The dungeons themselves aren't anything spectacular, but the pixel art models of both flesh and bone mobs look great. Their animations are smooth and the sound effects are perfect. I do wish we had access to some sort of compendium that kept track of which troops, artifacts, and enemies we've summoned, collected, or defeated. Some stats or basic descriptions would not only help players better understand what they're doing or fighting against, it would also allow for another layer of depth in terms of world building. Most roguelike fans love unlocking and collecting stuff, so devs, get on that. I'll also say that though the addition of tooltips for each stat or effect is extremely helpful, some of them are not very well explained. Figuring out the difference between respawn time and respawn rate, for example, was a bit confusing. Aside from that, I didn't really have any issues with the game. I even heard from a viewer that it ran perfectly well on an underpowered old PC, so that's always a plus. This is a title that offers tons of replayability right off the bat, too. You can build an army of weak ankle biters all rigged to explode when they die, or put together a wall of sturdy tanks backed up by a squad of healers, which was actually the tactic I used to beat the game. On top of that, the devs mentioned there will be additional characters, dungeons, and even skill trees to mess around with in the finished version. Though obviously I don't know how any of that will look yet. Personally, I think this is going to be a gem of a game that deserves a spot on every roguelike player's wish list. I'm also just the voice in your head though, so what do you think of Skull Horde? What do you think about the mix of army management and upgrade systems? Do you like this more involved take on auto battle, or do you prefer something more automatic? What changes would you like to see in the finished version? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a like or a comment helps me out a ton and prevents my flesh from rebelling against me. If you want more, subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep new content coming your way, because I put out new stuff every week. Thanks so much for listening to me today, and you'll be hearing from me again real soon.